So one of my favorite situations is when science uncovers something that used to be thought of as pseudoscience and actually turns out to have quite a lot of legitimacy. One of these is the dichotomy between the left and right brain hemispheres. This was thought to be pop psychology for a long time, where we just associated the left brain as being logical and the right brain being creative. And it is far more complex than that. And thanks to countless studies, there are significant differences that affect both the individual and microcosms, the relationships of the individual, and the culture at large. And so you may have seen work from this done by Iain McGhilchrist. This is a very intelligent philosopher psychiatrist who has been working in this field for about a decade, it seems. According to him, he's been receiving grants from universities to study this particular issue for at least 7 years with his first book, and he's been continuing that with The Master and His Emissary and The Matter with Things. He's dedicated a few thousand pages to this issue, so I really wanted to explore the legitimacy behind what he's been claiming and just how far this can be applied to the individual and to the culture. So I put together a diagram, and I'm going to leave a link to this in the description below, but for now I'm just going to try to go through this in this video and just summarize and condense the research that I've done on the legitimacy of his claims and aspects of each hemisphere that are valuable to reflect on and can be taken action on. And I've tried to narrow these down into about 20 categories each. So let's get right into it. So first we're going to begin with how McGhilchrist describes brain hemispheres as affecting thought, behavior, and culture. And then we're going to get into some studies looking at this in more detail. And then we're going to look at how to establish balance between the two hemispheres from other people and from McGhilchrist himself. And then we're going to examine McGhilchrist's advice on the individual, society, and culture and how to balance those. And then we'll be examining a little bit more evidence on hemispheric dominance and imbalances. And finally, we'll examine the actual role of the corpus callosum in uniting both of these hemispheres. So join me on part 1 of how brain hemispheres affect thought, behavior, and culture. First of all, the left brain seems mostly concentrated on narrow, focused attention. Narrow attention promotes concentration on specific tasks and details. This helps with technical problem solving and goal-oriented decisions. And culturally, this focus creates specialization, but it can exclude broader context, producing siloed thinking and fragmentation. Left hemisphere seems to prefer certainty and category. Certainty provides clear answers, aiding decision-making in structured environments. However, societies that are over-reliant on categorization might reject ambiguity, which can reduce creativity and their tolerance for complexity or change. The left brain tends to see parts rather than wholes. This enables precision in analysis and control, such as in engineering or in scientific processes. Yet, at a societal level, this risks missing interconnections, leading to fragmented systems. For example, ecological or economic crises. And folks like John Vervaeke and other cognitive scientists have also done a lot of exploring into this whole, seeing the part rather than the whole concept. This is also heavily seen in Western versus Eastern studies, and there is a lot of data on that. We'll get into more of that as we go forward. The left brain also prefers linear sequential processing. It supports logical, step-by-step planning and execution, which is crucial for progress in education and industry. Now, in culture, this fosters efficiency, but it might exclude non-linear emergent processes like intuition or art. The left brain is mechanistic and reductionist. I have a lot of work on this myself in my theories on what I call orthocadia, describing how in the United States we do very much ride on this reductionist and mechanistic, atomistic, and deterministic paradigm in our relationships, in the way that we conceive other people, in the way that we conceive ourselves, in the way that we think about psychology in particular. And this has been continuing in our universities, and I have a lot of other videos on that, so I won't get too much into that here. But essentially, this hemisphere treats systems, including people and nature, as machines that can be dissected and optimized. Now, this aids in technological progress and in medicine. It can very much depersonalize human relationships and undermine the value of living systems. And this is, again, very important in psychology, also very much in physiology. And so a lot of times there is a resistance to the holistic perspective, or the idea that the mind and the body are one, the brain and the body are an integrated unit, as is all other bodies. All humans are embedded with each other in reality. We are constantly influencing each other. You are the 5 people that you hang around the most. You may have heard this phrase. As well as you are what you eat, you are how you sleep, you are how you exercise, and you are your meaning structure and your identity. And all of those affect your physiological health in your body and your psychological health in your brain. And this is kind of my mission on this channel, to elucidate that concept from an empirical perspective. That being said, let's continue this list. The left brain fixates on explicit and measurable data. Behaviorally, this reliance ensures objectivity in decisions, such as in science or finance. Culturally, it emphasizes metrics and results, potentially marginalizing subjective, qualitative experiences. Left brain handles language, especially the syntax part of language. Syntax enables communication and rational argumentation, which is essential for education and law, but it prioritizes literalism over deeper metaphorical meaning, reducing the richness of cultural and interpersonal communication. And you're going to be hearing this word interpersonal a lot going forward, as well as the word interconnection and interdependence. The left brain abstracts information from context. So abstraction supports generalization and problem solving across domains, making ideas very transferable. However, it can remove context and lived experience, creating impersonal solutions that might not fit real-world complexities. And as we'll explore, this very much is seen in Western versus Eastern dichotomies. The left brain grasps the literal rather than the metaphorical meaning. Literalism fosters clarity and practical understandings, but limits deeper insight into symbols, narratives, and art. And it can be debated how much spirituality and ritual and myth and metaphor is needed. Metaphor is foundational to human language in general. It's seen in all cultures, and we can't really do without it. Myth and spirituality seem to hold a role for some people more than others, and we talk about this more in my series on existential psychotherapy, wherein death anxiety plays a large role here, where we can become much more comfortable with our demise when we take on some kind of religious or spiritual or myth-based perspective on the afterlife. The left brain values utility and immediate goals. Utility ensures efficiency and results-driven behavior, which enables economic and technological advancements. Yet this can drive short-termism, which can erode ethics and long-term well-being in favor of profit or convenience. The left brain seems to operate on static and unchanging models of reality. Static models provide stability and predictability, which is very useful for routine decisions. Societies clinging to fixed models resist adaptation and innovation, leading to stagnation or collapse under change. Now, this is also seen in the brain's properties of predictive processing in general, which is seen in both hemispheres and is a very limbic process as well. And predictive processing overhauls in addiction. The left brain tends to represent reality through maps or symbols. Symbols and maps simplify complex realities for decision-making, as in science or logistics. Overuse can detach individuals from lived experience, fostering abstracted, virtual forms of interaction. For example, digital cultures. And symbolism is seen in religion and art as well, for better or worse. You may have heard the term, the map is not the territory. Left brain tends to operate on detached and impersonal perception. Detachment aids objectivity, especially in professions like law, science, or medicine. But culturally, it risks alienation and a loss of empathy, which can weaken community bonds and ethical behavior. Left brain focuses on control and manipulation of the environment. Control enables innovation and resource management, but fosters a worldview where nature and people are tools to be exploited. This can lead to unsustainable development and ecological crises. So this one can get pretty abstract, and it's very easy to form philosophical conclusions on this about the human condition at large, and especially patriarchy and the dominance hierarchy, wherein men in particular will try and control not just the environment, but other people. This takes place in the relationship, this takes place in families, in romantic relationships, I should say. And it's hard to get direct evidence for how this works. That's kind of the problem with psychology in general and studying the human condition. But when you really look at it, and you do zoom out to look at the big picture on this, it's kind of hard to deny. There's something in us as a species that not only conforms to competition and power complexes and social status, but just a desire to control and manipulate a company and other people in general. So power complexes are kind of complicated. What I seem to be seeing is just a lot of fear and a lot of desire to feel more safe. So when you have more resources in your control, it can help you feel more safe psychologically and make you feel like there are less worries to deal with. And so people will unconsciously act on that, perhaps from a genetic disposition towards staying safe and keeping the organism safe. And so they'll take advantage of other people, or they'll resort to bad behaviors that don't behoove them and that can actually damage them and others. So the left brain seems to utilize analytical systematizing cognition. That's kind of a mouthful. The analytical aspect of the brain, this is very much seen in Western universities in general, and has been part of the philosophical process for millennia, and it's been commented on for millennia as well. The fact that one can become overly logical and over-prioritize logical consistency and too much inspection into others, too much over-examination. The left brain prefers to know familiar tasks, and any artist or musician knows this very well. There's a tricky balance there where you don't want to over-examine and overthink what you're doing when you're creating your craft, when you're expressing yourself creatively. But you also want to have a good amount of that, because if you don't work within a certain framework, what you're producing won't be relevant to anyone. And this kind of relates to John Vervaeke's relevance realization, where the brain forms a good ability around that, where it can gravitate towards what is most relevant to the populace, not in a way where the artist will be selling out. That's going too far towards appeasing the public, but doing so in a way that blends the creation that they wish to express with something that will work and fit certain frameworks in reality. As I like to say, the true artist dances on the cultural fringe, pushing the fourth wall without fully breaking it. The left brain prefers known, familiar tasks. Novelty is scary. Familiarity ensures efficiency and safety in routine behaviors. Societies that are overly dependent on the familiar resist change, innovation, and cultural diversity. This is also seen in the logical fallacy of familiarity bias. Now, I just want to note, routine is also incredibly important. It's not something to be avoided. You just want to find the right routines. You want to brush your teeth in the morning. You want to have some kind of morning ritual, as we call it. You want to have some kind of routine consistency in the way that you speak and behave in culture as well, in your relationships. The left brain relies on denotation over connotation. Denotation ensures clarity in communication and understanding. A culture prioritizing denotation can lose emotional depth and subtlety in art, language, and relationships. The left brain repeats learned behaviors, and it's kind of resistant to novelty. The left brain kind of ignores implicit or intangible aspects of experience. Neglecting the intangible removes emotional and spiritual depth, leading to practical but unfulfilling decisions. Culturally, it erodes art, relationships, and meaning, fostering superficiality. Now, this is one that Iain McGhilchrist seems to be very adamant about. He's certainly more spiritually minded than I am, but his commentary does seem sound. I try not to think from my own perspective on this. I just try to look at what people seem to need in general, and a lot of people need this deep spiritual understanding that's connected and not just isolated in its own system. Now, according to McGhilchrist, the left hemisphere's strengths seem to underpin bureaucracy and bureaucratic systems, technological efficiency, and economic progress. And as we said, these systems can become impersonal, rigid, and oppressive, prioritizing function over humanity.